Of course we are different, and it's great to have different cultures, but I think that we stress maybe too much on our differences, and we don't stress enough on how much we are alike. So when they called me to become the chairwoman of the International Booker Prize, the first thing is that I was very honored and very, very proud. Then I was very afraid when she said how many books I will have to read, and I was like, oh my God, is it possible to read as many books in like 3 months or 4 months? I don't remember, but I'm very happy I said yes. It was really a great and very complex experience. I learned a lot of things. First of all, it's really great to read books that you would never have read alone, and to read out of your taste. So to read Korean books that I've never heard about, or Chinese books, or from Macedonia, or whatever. To discover, you have also to open your mind, because you discover that what you call a novel in France or in other countries, maybe in China or maybe in Argentina, they don't really have the same or exactly the same definition of what a novel is supposed to be. So it's interesting also because you have to open your mind and try to redefine your own vision of literature. And it's also really great to have those discussions with people who don't share your taste. And you come to a meeting and you really, really loved this book, and you have some arguments to explain why you loved it. And in front of you, you have someone who really hated this book and has also arguments to defend it. And it's very interesting. But I have to say that as a novelist, it's also very disturbing, because I was telling myself, okay, so that's what people are thinking when they write, piece about your book, or when readers read the book. Of course, some people hate your books and some love it, but it's very interesting, but at the same time very disturbing. I was born and raised in Morocco, Arabophone country. I was speaking French and Arabic at home. My grandmother was from Alsace, but also from Germany, so she was always speaking German. We were a lot of women with just one man. So our life was about translating all the time from French to Arabic to German and so it was very, very, at the same time, very funny, sometimes very difficult, because translating is also finding a way to understand one another, because he has a different culture, a different point of view. But for me, it's something really familiar. My whole childhood was about translating emotion, translating everything. Even if we have different religion, different point of view, different regime, political regime, when you read a book alone in your room, and that's what I experienced as a child. When I was like 12 years old, my father gave me Russian authors. He gave me Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and all this. And I was in Morocco, I was living in Rabat, and I can really remember precisely when I was reading about Anna Karenine, and I felt that I was her. And I completely understood what she was experiencing. Although I was just a teenager from Morocco, and I was reading a book written by a man 1 century before in a country I've never been in. So I think it's very important to say that through literature, we experience the fact that we are, at the end of the day, just human beings. So I've read some of the selected book in French before the Booker Prize jury, and it's quite weird to reread them in English, because it's not exactly the same book. Of course, the story is the same, the characters are the same, but sometimes I felt like, I didn't see that when I read it in French. I was not aware of this. And so, in a certain way, I think it opens your eyes on a different layer in the book. So it's always interesting to read a book in different languages, because some things that could be very poetic in French, you don't find them in English. But the opposite is true also. Some things become very poetic in English and they are not in French. So it was very interesting. It's really a sort of metamorphose, a sort of real transformation, translation. Translation is not just about finding the right meaning for each word. Really, there is something like a metamorphosis. I remember that when I saw for the first time one of my book translated, I was very moved, and it was really fascinating. And also, I think what is very moving is when you meet the public, and when you meet a public that read your book in another language, and that you can't speak with them. For instance, when I go to Czech Republic or to China, I can't speak with my public in their language, and they can't speak French, but at the same time we shared something. We shared something very intimate that comes from my heart, from my soul. So it's really moving. And I think that in a world today where everyone is claiming their identity, nationality, and all this, it's so important to say that there are bridges. We can build a lot of bridges between people, and that we can understand each other. Of course, we are different, and it's great to have different cultures, but I think that we stress maybe too much on our differences, and we don't stress enough on how much we are alike. And when you travel with your books, when they are translated, I think that's the conclusion of all this, is that we are very much alike. That in China, in Argentina, or in Great Britain, we cry the same. We are moved by the same things. We are all afraid. We are all in love. And we have the same emotions. And I think that's what the point with translation is, that all over the world we can understand an emotion.